We all have that toxic habit of scrolling Zillow, looking at brutally average houses we can't afford, and feeling like we're totally failing at life. And right on cue, you hear your parents' voices in your head telling you that renting is throwing money away. I need you to let go of that guilt today. Because in 2026, buying a house is no longer a guaranteed ticket to wealth. For most of us, it is a financial trap that completely eats your freedom. If you've been feeling panicked about not owning a home yet, watch this. I'm going to show you the exact math on why renting right now will actually make you a millionaire faster. Welcome back to Adin Invests. Today we are unpacking one of the heaviest psychological burdens of our modern economy. We are going to look at the American dream of homeownership, take it off its pedestal, and run the brutal, honest numbers on what it actually costs to own a home in today's reality. There is a deep emotional conditioning we all share when it comes to housing. For generations, the formula for a successful life in the United States was entirely predictable. You graduate, you get a stable corporate job, you save up a modest down payment, and you buy a starter home. You live in it, you raise your family, the property value slowly appreciates, and by the time you are ready to retire, that house is your ultimate nest egg. It was the bedrock of middle-class wealth. And because it worked so flawlessly for our parents and our grandparents, they passed that blueprint down to us with the conviction of a religious truth. They taught us that your primary residence is the best investment you will ever make. They taught us that paying rent is effectively paying a stranger's mortgage, burning your hard-earned cash in a fire every single month. But there is a massive structural blind spot in that inherited wisdom. Our parents bought their homes in an entirely different economic universe. They bought when the median home price was roughly 3 to 4 times the median household income. Today, in many major markets, that ratio has doubled or even tripled. They bought before massive Wall Street institutions and private equity firms started buying up single-family neighborhoods in bulk. They bought before property taxes, homeowners insurance, and the cost of basic materials and labor were actually proportional to what a normal person earned in a 40-hour workweek. When we try to apply a 1990s financial playbook to a 2026 reality, the math physically shatters. Yet the emotional expectation remains completely intact. And that lingering emotional pressure is incredibly dangerous because it leads directly to financial panic. It creates this overwhelming, suffocating fear of missing out. You log on to social media and see your friends posing with a new set of house keys on their front porch, and you feel this hollow pit in your stomach. The narrative in your head says that if you do not buy right now, if you do not stretch your budget to the absolute breaking point to get your foot in the door today, you will be priced out of the market forever. This panic pushes incredibly smart, hard-working people to make the most monumental financial decision of their entire lives from a place of deep fear rather than a place of cold logic. People are draining their hard-earned emergency funds. They are taking penalties to borrow against their 401k retirement accounts. They are signing up for mortgages that consume 40 or 50% of their take-home pay. And when they finally cross that threshold, when the closing papers are signed and the heavy front door closes behind them, they suddenly wake up to the painful, quiet reality of what they actually just purchased. We need to fundamentally redefine what an investment actually is, because the way society talks about home equity is a surface-level illusion. An investment, in the purest financial sense, is an asset that pays you. It puts money into your pocket without requiring your constant labor. It generates dividends, it yields interest, or it provides positive cash flow. A primary residence does the exact opposite. It constantly, relentlessly, and predictably demands capital from you. When people talk about the financial benefits of owning a home, they almost exclusively talk about the appreciation of the asset. They say things like, "I bought this house for $400,000, and 5 years later it is worth $500,000. I made $100,000 in pure profit." But that is a mathematical fiction. It's a fairy tale that conveniently ignores the massive, invisible, and unrecoverable costs of keeping that house standing. Let us break down exactly what happens to your cash when you sign a 30-year fixed-rate mortgage. First, there's the interest. Because of the way mortgage amortization is structured, for the first decade of your loan, the vast majority of your monthly payment is not going toward your wealth. It's not going toward the principal balance of the house. It's going straight into the bank's profit margins as interest. If you run an amortization schedule on a standard mortgage at today's rates, you'll see that over 30 years, you're practically buying the house twice. That interest money is unrecoverable. Then, we have to look at property taxes. The harsh truth of American real estate is that you never truly own your home free and clear. You simply rent the land it sits on from your local county government. If you pay off your mortgage but stop paying your property taxes, the government will happily foreclose on your home and take it away. And the most punishing part of property taxes is that they increase as the value of your home increases. You are effectively penalized for the very appreciation you are supposed to be celebrating. Every year, you have to pay more just to maintain the right to stay in the home you already bought. That tax money is unrecoverable. And finally, we have to talk about the insurance crisis. If you've been paying attention to the markets over the last few years, you know that homeowners insurance has completely skyrocketed. Between climate risks, the inflated cost of rebuilding materials, and corporate rate hikes, insurance premiums in many states have become a massive, unpredictable burden. You write that check every year hoping you never have to use it. That insurance money is unrecoverable. And finally, we have the silent killer of generational wealth.
Maintenance and repairs. When you rent an apartment, a broken water heater is a minor inconvenience. You notice the water's cold, you make a quick phone call to your property manager, someone comes to fix it while you're at work, and you go on with your day. Your bank account remains entirely unaffected. When you own the home, a broken water heater on a Tuesday night is a sudden, terrifying financial emergency. The roof will eventually leak and need a complete replacement. The HVAC system will inevitably die in the middle of summer. The foundation might settle. A pipe might burst. The old rule of thumb was to save 1% of your home's total value every year for maintenance. In today's landscape of inflated labor costs, that number is dangerously inadequate. Every weekend spent at the hardware store, every emergency call to a plumber, every landscaping bill, that is unrecoverable money, and more importantly, it is unrecoverable time. When you sit down with a calculator and add up the interest, the property taxes, the insurance premiums, the closing costs, and the relentless maintenance over a 10 or 20-year period, you begin to see a very different, very sobering picture. The societal idea that renting is a total waste of money, while owning is a guaranteed path to riches, is simply not mathematically accurate. Rent is the absolute maximum amount of money you will pay for your housing in a given month. A mortgage is the absolute minimum you will pay. But as heavy as the financial drain is, the psychological toll of this trap is where the real damage is done to your life. Money is supposed to be a tool that buys you freedom. It is supposed to buy you options, flexibility, and the ability to design a life that brings you peace. But when you are strapped with a massive mortgage that consumes half of your monthly income, your house stops being a sanctuary, it stops being a place of rest, and it starts becoming a prison. We call this being house poor. It is one of the most chronically stressful ways a human being can exist, and millions of people are living this reality in silence right now. Imagine the scenario. You buy the beautiful house, you are proud of it, but because the mortgage, the elevated utility bills, and the constant upkeep take up so much of your cash flow, you have virtually nothing left over at the end of the month. You stop contributing to your investment accounts. You stop going out to dinners with your friends because it simply does not fit into the budget anymore. You put off taking meaningful vacations. You feel a constant low-level anxiety every time it rains, wondering if the roof is going to hold up. But worst of all, you lose your agency in your career. When you have a massive 30-year debt hanging directly over your head, you can no longer afford to take risks. If your workplace becomes toxic or your boss becomes abusive, you can't just draw a boundary and walk away. If you have a burning desire to start your own business or pivot to a more fulfilling career that pays a little less, you can't take the leap. You are trapped. You become utterly, desperately dependent on your next corporate paycheck just to keep the bank from taking the roof over your head. Your entire existence becomes engineered around serving the house. You spend 40 to 50 hours a week grinding at a job that drains your soul simply so you can afford to pay for a house that you are too physically exhausted to actually enjoy when you finally get home. You trade the best years of your youth, your energy, and your flexibility for a plot of land and a fleeting sense of societal approval. There is a profound, life-altering shift that happens when you finally wake up to this dynamic. It's the turning point where you stop looking at money as just numbers on a bank screen, and you start looking at money as a measure of your personal freedom. Real wealth is not defined by the square footage of your property. Wealth is the amount of unallocated, free time you have in your day to spend with people you love. Wealth is the ability to sleep deeply and peacefully at night, knowing that a sudden $1,000 expense won't ruin your life. Wealth is not being tied down to a location or a job that makes you miserable. And in the modern financial world, the ultimate key to that freedom is liquidity. Liquidity is arguably the most underrated financial superpower of our era. When your net worth is entirely tied up in the drywall, the bricks, and the lumber of a physical house, that wealth is trapped. It is illiquid. You can't buy groceries with your home equity. You can't pay a sudden medical bill with the appreciated value of your newly remodeled kitchen. But when you have liquidity, when your wealth is stored in easily accessible assets like broad market index funds, high-yield savings accounts, and investment portfolios, you have ultimate flexibility. Cash is financial oxygen. When you have it, you can breathe easily no matter what the economy is doing. Consider the financial trajectory of a smart, disciplined renter. Society might look at them with pity, assuming they're renting because they simply can't afford to buy. But let's look at the reality of their balance sheet. Because the smart renter isn't draining their cash into non-recoverable property taxes, new roofs, and massive interest payments to the bank, they have a monthly surplus. They take that surplus cash and they diligently invest it into the S&P 500 or other broad market index funds. Over time, that money compounds. It grows silently, powerfully in the background, 24 hours a day. It requires absolutely zero maintenance. It never needs a new HVAC system. It never calls you in the middle of the night about a plumbing leak. More importantly, the smart renter has total mobility. If an incredible, high-paying job opportunity opens up across the country, they can pack up their life and relocate without having to worry about selling a house, paying 6% to a real estate agent, and timing the housing market. If they realize they want to downsize their lifestyle to work part-time and spend more hours with their children, they simply wait for their lease to end and move to a smaller, cheaper apartment. They are completely untethered. They have successfully uncoupled their personal identity and their ego from their zip code. When you truly internalize this concept, the heavy, suffocating anxiety around the housing market starts to melt away. You realize that you don't have to participate in the chaos. You don't have to buy a house to be highly successful, and you can build incredible, multi-generational wealth entirely through liquid assets without ever having your name on a mortgage deed. So, how do we practically apply this to our lives right now? How do we navigate a culture that is constantly screaming at us to buy property at any cost? The very first thing you have to do is completely divorce your emotions from the mathematics of housing. You have to sit down and run your own numbers for your own specific life in your own specific city. Look at the true cost of renting a space that fits your current needs and compare it to the true, totally encompassing cost of owning a similar space. Factor in the unrecoverable costs. Factor in the opportunity cost, meaning what would happen if you took your $80,000 down payment and invested it into the stock market for the next 30 years at an average historical return. Often, when you remove the emotion and just look at the cold, hard math, you'll find that renting and investing the difference leaves you millions of dollars wealthier and infinitely less stressed over a 30-year timeline. The second thing you must do is change the way you categorize a home in your mind. Stop treating a primary residence as an investment vehicle. If you want to buy a house, that's entirely okay. There is absolutely nothing wrong with homeownership, but you have to view it for what it truly is, a consumption choice. It's a lifestyle decision. You buy a house because you want the freedom to paint your living room walls dark green. You buy it because you want a specific fenced-in backyard for your dog to run around in. You buy it because you are deeply established in your career. You have found a community you love, and you want to put permanent roots. You buy it because it will bring you a high return in personal joy, not because you expect it to make you rich. And because it's a consumption choice, you should only buy a house when you can truly, comfortably afford it, meaning the total monthly cost doesn't compromise your ability to invest for your future. It doesn't stop you from building a robust cash safety net, and it doesn't force you to stop living your actual life. If buying a house right now means you will be stretched thin, if it means you will lose your peace of mind and your flexibility, then renting is not just an acceptable backup plan, it's the absolute smartest, most strategic financial decision you can make. We need to stop letting an outdated, romanticized version of the American dream dictate our modern financial reality. It's okay to opt out of a game that feels rigged against you. It's entirely okay to look at a chaotic, hyperinflated housing market and simply say, I choose not to participate right now. You are not failing at life if you don't own property. You are not falling behind your peers if you are renting an apartment. Don't let anyone, not a social media algorithm, not a commissioned real estate agent, and certainly not the ghost of past economic eras, shame you into a 30-year financial commitment that you are not fully ready for. Your greatest asset is not a plot of land with a house on it. Your greatest asset is your time, your energy, and your peace of mind. Protect those three things fiercely. Make financial decisions that give you more breathing room in your daily life, not less. Focus your energy on building real, liquid wealth that gives you options, rather than tying yourself to a massive liability that strips your options away. Progress in life is not always a linear path of constantly upgrading your lifestyle and buying bigger things. Sometimes the ultimate form of progress is just choosing the path of least anxiety. Keep investing consistently, keep learning about how money actually works, and remember that building a life you actually enjoy waking up to is the only investment that truly matters. Take a deep breath. You are doing just fine. Thank you for being here with me today. Keep your head up, and I'll see you in the next one.